Stress and busyness. The unhealthy beliefs and traits that we have around being busy, being distracted, even being a bit of a workaholic. My name is Eileen Burns. I'm a stress management trainer, coach and therapist, and I run stress coach training and online stress management and relaxation therapy training courses for coaches, healers and therapists. And I also provide other courses for individuals. Now, the reality is many of us carry so many distortions, so many unhealthy traits that have been formed, for example, in childhood, or the beliefs and condition that we've taken from our parents, our grandparents, our culture, our education, other people around us. And traits that actually also form out of certain habits or certain things that have happened in our life. It's funny how in life, in modern day life, that we have come to pride ourselves in keeping busy and to filling our life with all these events and things to do. And we miss out some of the most important things that are key to keep us mentally, emotionally, physically and spiritually healthy. And that is the ability to stop and be, to stop and relax, to stop and slow down. I have came from a bit of a workaholic family. I was the eldest of 9, and work, was a big part because I came from a family business background, and when you're in the family business, you know that sometimes, business is not always easy. It can be hard work and it depends on the situation. Sometimes there's tough times, sometimes there's really good times, and there can be challenges. And coming from a big family, obviously my dad had, how could you say, more to provide for than the average family. And, that would have caused all sorts of beliefs and set of triggers, or it's more likely to cause certain set of beliefs and triggers. And a lot of beliefs and triggers were passed down already. He was already in a big family, and he came from a family business background, and there was lots of things that were formed in us very young. And one of the things was, really working really hard. And I know when even from a young girl, I had many jobs. I had jobs when I was really an age that was illegal to work, but that would be usually working from the family business, so that's a wee bit different. But busyness was something that we were taught to pride ourselves in. And when I was younger, I didn't have the awareness to understand how that actually can be very unhealthy at times, especially if there's no balance. And I went through my life trying to fill my life up being busy. But the reality is that due to a lot of health challenges and rare things that I had from a young age, busyness was not serving me, and it does not serve most of us. And what I mean by that is that busyness is another also way that pushes down, and it's a way to push down what's really going on emotionally. It can often be a way to distract ourselves and to give ourselves that space. When we fill our life up, we have no space to actually maybe face things and to go through the natural cycles of life. Busyness has become very much the new norm for many, many years and decades, and maybe more than that. And often there's a sense of pride and value. I'm the hardest worker in that environment, or I work extra hours for nothing, or I do this for our company. But the reality is, when you are someone that is constantly busy, okay, when you're someone that is squeezing last, you're sitting at the computer, the very last one at night in your workplace, when you're working through your breaks, when you take on these other tasks, when you're the person that helps everyone around you, who does all the things, or the person that's constantly getting asked to do things, that can lead to serious burnout. It also leads to not just low levels of chronic anxiety and stress that's constant going on, because you then start to be unable to switch off. You find it difficult just to sit and relax and be. You have to be doing. And when you find yourself in a situation when you have to be doing all the time, you are basically suffering from some lower level chronic anxiety or stress, or you're craving sort of the sort of hormones that come, adrenaline. You maybe start to become an adrenaline junkie. Okay. The reality is, as human beings, there's time to go and there's time to stop. One of my students, as I was explaining something to another student, added something in. It was a great way of explaining things. You need green time, just like you need red time. So there's times that you may all go, and then there's times you need, or it might be the green time, where you might look at the opposite. You might look at green as a go button, the green button when you're going the lights, and it's time to stop. Right? Now, we are naturally made up that when we face difficult challenges and such situations that threaten us particularly physically, a survival threat, that is, that's what the fight or flight, the survival response is initially triggered due, in these situations, so that our body can respond mentally, emotionally and physically and the way it needs to for that situation. It goes into the fight or flight mode so that your body responds, and it may have to run faster or do things, and the body basically starts pumping certain hormones. But there's other things that get subdued. There's certain things that don't really work that well. There's very little energy goes to it. There's certain organs that don't really work as well at that point, because all of the energy is going to being alert and having to deal with something in an emergency situation. Now, when we're in a proper full fight or flight response, when it's a serious emergency situation, we're often able to do incredible things that normally we may not be able to do. We can run much faster. We can grab things, like grab children off a road, and people can lift things they normally wouldn't, because the adrenaline is really pushing. It's helping the person be able to cope and survive in that situation. Now, when you're someone that keeps busy, you may not have that extreme level of stress and that extreme level of the stress response, but there can be low levels of these hormones, because what's happening is you're keeping busy. The body has not been able to switch off from the stress response and get into the relaxed response, or the relaxation response. The way that we are created, we have two polarities. As a baby, you have the ability to just lie and completely relax and be. You don't have to be sleeping to relax. You can just relax, and you're content in your own skin, and you just be. But the reality is, society has fed us in many ways, and obviously we're fed through other people around us, as I talked about, But society, and modern society in many ways, and media, and even political government, and so many things have tried to shape that we pride ourselves in this extreme busyness to such a degree that it's so unhealthy, that people give themselves, they give themselves very little space to for other situations to arise and other circumstances. They don't give themselves enough space to just breathe, to enjoy the moment, to pace things out. And the reality is, your life, a healthy life, depends on balance. A healthy life needs harmony, because it needs harmony to restore you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Balance is so important. Now, balance may be slightly different from one person to another. So someone who is who's always been more active, yes, their balance may be slightly different than someone who's more passive, right? Someone who enjoys and has always slowed down and lived their life in a more relaxed way. Everyone is individual. But the reality is, if you feel the need to constantly keep your life busy, or you're someone that cannot say no, that does not have healthy boundaries, and everyone is always asking you to do something or expecting you to do something, or you're the one that thinks that you should or must or need to do something, you have to sit and look at why you keep busy. You have to have the ability to look at any over-identification with certain roles, even with certain archetypes. I love understanding archetypes, and even though archetypes are very 3D in relation, in some aspects they're 3D, when we talk about particular people fit into certain archetypes, there is an aspect of 3D, but it's also very beneficial to know in an energetic way, because archetypes are basically they're like personality traits, but they are traits that you tend to fall into. And some strong examples are, some archetype people are natural leaders, natural rulers, but there can be the positive and light of that archetype. So someone that is a good leader or a good ruler, the negative aspect or the shadow aspect, they might want to rule or lead everyone when it's not appropriate. They may want to rule and control and take power of others and disempower others. The positive, the light aspect of that is that they may be great to deal with certain crises and to help people move forward in difficult circumstances and to create positive change. Okay, we also have strong archetypes like the rebel, and the rebel can be someone who constantly likes to break the rules, or the person who sees past the rules, sees maybe the ridiculousness of certain rules, and does not want to be bound by man-made rules or someone else's rules and guidelines. Okay, and again, there's the light and shadow aspect. So the rebel can go about their life constantly just breaking rules, or constantly challenging things, even when there's no need to challenge. It's a pattern that becomes that they just challenge everything. They want to break the rules, and sometimes that can maybe cause harm to someone else or themselves. They sabotage themselves. So every archetype has positive elements. You have the caregiver, or what's called sometimes the nurturer, and the caregiver and the nurturer is the type of person who tends to care, very, very caring, motherly, nurturing to other people. But the reality is, some aspects, some types of nurturers or caregivers can take that too far. They want to mother everyone, protect everyone, and they don't give, they're taking in other ways, you can disempower someone because you're not getting them to take self-responsibility. You want to overcompensate. A caregiver, nurturer, that's a strong trait in men, is that it means that you can be motherly and want to protect and do things all the time for other people, but they're not taking responsibility, or they just want to take, and you can then create also unhealthy boundaries. A lot of caregivers and nurturers can also have very strong elements with the rescuer and the helper, and again, so there's positive and light. Now, there is so many different archetypes that we can over-identify, and these archetypes can shape how we respond to anxiety and stress, and some of the beliefs and some of the natural traits that tend to be more ingrained in us. And some of these can be very powerful aspects, what I believe are part of our purpose. But we have to have balance, and we have to be able to have balance in our life, in our relationships, in our workplace, even in our perception of things. And if we over-identify with certain roles, and for example, if we believe that we are the caring person, the helping person, and we over-identify with that, we can then give ourselves a lot more work, and we constantly believe that we're the person that's to do that. Just like someone who thinks that they have to be the leader or ruler all the time, and they take on that role and they put themselves under a lot of pressure. Or even the person that is so used to being the rebel that they feel they have to rebel all the time, and they're not having time to just be and not challenge the status quo. And busyness is something that is one, how could you say, it can be a symptom of anxiety and stress. And often people don't know when that busyness, that belief of being busy felt important, but also we have very distorted beliefs. Like some people say when someone's lost someone, it's important that they keep busy and they just go to work. Now, if you think about that belief system, that is then also throwing something onto someone that then they're not allowed the natural process of grieving. They're not allowed to face the natural cycle of life. If we look at the seasons in life, we have winter, we have spring, we have summer, we have autumn, and some of those months are about growth and blossoming, and other are about then getting more mature, and then maybe even dying and getting old. And that is the same in the cycle of life. We all have different cycles of life, and there's sometimes in life we have really positive things happening, but there's also times where we have loss. And as a human being, when we feel, even if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, that nothing is ever kind of totally lost, and you may have different beliefs, and still in a human, when we're living a human existence, we have formed attachments, we've formed relationships, and even when we have a looser attachment to things, there is still a cycle of life. There is cycle of birth, there is cycles of growing up to different stages. If you think about the human cycle starting as a baby, and the child starts to develop to a teenager, up to an adult, and then more a mature adult, and then an older adult, till then that cycle ends for that individual, and then a new cycle with someone else. Now, in modern day life, there's very much seems to be a kind of I don't know if you would say it was a culture, but conditioning, where people are not even expected to have the grieving process, expected to take the time out or to slow down. There's very much about pushing your emotions under the surface, and not to, you just go on with it, and again, that can be a lot of reasons for people's busyness. It's certainly the main reason for distractions. And one of the things that in stress management, and in particular what I train people in is how to take people back into the state of being, but how to help them relax deeply. It's a very undervalued skill when you're teaching people to really be able to be more mentally, emotionally resilient, and to get them off that chronic anxiety, stress cycle, or even to help them recover from trauma. Getting someone into deep states, very deep states, muscular, in the cells and everything, and completely in deep states of relaxation, and help them to release even physical trauma. And what I mean by that, things that are stored in the body, and an energetic component is so important, and it can make such a huge difference in someone's life. And it can, if you teach them how to do it, you're empowering the client. I'm very much about empowerment. I'm very much about not just being a therapist, but people passing always the power back to the client, so the client doesn't become self-reliant on any therapist. And the reason I realise this is so important today is that we have so many forms of media and so many things that we use to what we call self-soothe and distract ourselves. And these are things like, TV, computers, social media, phones, all sorts of things, and even things like alcohol, drugs, medication, prescription medication, anything that is used to try and dull the emotions, dull feelings, or to avoid emotions, avoid certain things that we're experiencing. And when people think about relaxing, they often think, oh, I was watching telly to relax. That's not relaxation, that's a distraction. Because when you're watching television, you are not completely relaxed, okay? So, what areas of your life do you overcompensate with busyness? How many things do you believe that you should fit in, or are you trying to fit in your child's life? Do you think, where did those beliefs form? Sometimes it's when we start thinking, well, where did you pick up that belief, and why do you think it's so important that you fill your life up with doing rather than being? Because being is about mostly being in the moment. It teaches you to relax. It also teaches you how to fully enjoy the moment, from being able to appreciate your surroundings, appreciate the moment, there and then. But the reality is, most of us are so busy and so distracted that we're filling our life with lots of things, but we're not fully being in the moment, in those events and those situations. So when you think that busyness is something that's a sense of pride, and it's something that's so important and so valuable, I challenge you to think, is it always healthy? Is it always the best thing? Is it always a valuable trait? Because everything needs balance. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like the video, I would love for you to share your thoughts, say hi, and if you would like any more information about some of my courses, I offer free courses, lots of free resources other than my other training, and you'll get more information on www.stresscoachtraining.co. Thank you. Bye for now.